The event actually happened on the 28th of December, 1988, at about 7:45 p.m. Two F14 Tomcat jet fighters of the U.S. Navy were captured by a huge delta-shaped craft over the Sierra Bermeja Mountains in the southwest part of Puerto Rico, generally called Cabo Rojo. The Cabo Rojo area was being overflown 3 or 4 times a day by groups of jet fighters the day before and the day before that. On this particular evening, this was now 6:30 in the evening, Wilson Sosa's wife was cooking supper. She told her husband, the jets are back. And he said, I think I'll go take a look. And he picked up his binoculars and walked out onto a little veranda that looks east towards the Sierra Bermeja Mountains. And he saw 3 jet fighters at high altitude going at high speed that slowed down and spread their wings forward. What he saw was the airplanes began to descend, and one of them remained on a high station, and the 2 came lower and lower. And then he noticed a large delta-shaped craft approaching low over the Sierra Bermeja Mountain. It was moving slowly at about 2,000 feet, and as he watched, the 2 airplanes that had separated from the formation above began to make swooping passes on the front of this big delta-shaped object, and it did turn a little bit, and then it stopped and sat still in the air. And then the jets started flying around it, so they started making closer and closer passes on both sides of it. People up and down the street were shouting to their neighbors, and there were maybe 100 people out in the streets in that little sector of the village. After the jet fighters had made 2 or 3 passes along the sides, and they were getting ever closer, they were now coming up behind this huge delta that's still sitting still in the air, and the size was estimated to be about 1,000 feet on a side. That's 1/5 of a mile on each side of the triangle. Compared to the jet fighters looked like mosquitoes attacking grapefruit in relative size. And as the fighters came up from the rear, they split, and one went up the left side of the jet, and the other one was going up the right-hand side. And the one on the left-hand side went in very close, so close that the people on the ground began to shout. They thought it was going to collide with the big delta, and then it disappeared, and the jet engine noise stopped. And the one on the right-hand side was a little further out, immediately made a turn towards the jet to fly over the top of it, apparently to see what happened to his buddy. And as soon as he reached the upper edge of the big delta-shaped craft, he disappeared and his engine noise stopped. Now the only noise being made was the noise from the 3rd jet fighter at high altitude, still circling, and it went into afterburner, swept its wings back, and headed east at high speed, and then 2 or 4 balls of red fire left the big delta and took off after it, and they disappeared over the Sierra Bermeja Ridge together. Big delta-shaped craft, after the jets were captured and the 3rd one had disappeared, came down lower. It came down almost to the tops of the palm trees. And then a strange thing happened. There was an explosive burst of light, but no sound and no concussion. And when the light subsided enough so they could see the craft again, its wings had come forward and it had divided down the middle into 2 deltas. And they each started to rise and fly away. One went north and one went south, and they disappeared.